welcome back to day 2 of the International AI Governance and Cooperation Forum that's been organised in collaboration between Tsinghua University, National University of Singapore and Melbourne University. We're delighted to see you back early, and we'll have more people drifting in as they arrive. That's lovely. But today we're starting with panel 5, which is people, economy, governance and human development, right at the core of our themes. And we're really honoured and delighted to have this panel chaired by Weixing, who is the Assistant Resident Representative for United Nations Development Programme in China, who's assembled a really excellent panel for us. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am Zhang from United Nations Development Program. It's wonderful to see you on day 2, and welcome. So the session is about people, economy, governance, and human development. Today we're joined by 4 leading scholars whose work actually directly contribute to UNDP's new regional flagship report entitled The Next Great Divergence, Why AI May Widen Inequality Between Countries. Actually, this report will be launched next week across Asia-Pacific region. So today we would have an opportunity to have a curtain raiser and deep dive to some of the key findings of the report. It highlights a central question for our region, that AI may create a new form of development divergence. On one hand, AI diffusion is slow, where digital and institutional foundations are weak. Yet, disruptions from misinformation to job displacement and compute-driven energy demand are arriving rather fast. This divergence is emerging through interacting inequalities across people, economy, governance systems. So our goal today is to unpack these dynamics and explore practical pathways to ensure that AI strengthens rather than undermines human development. So today we have a panel whose top expertise will form the intellectual backbone of this discussion, and it's very much in line with the forum's topic, who builds and who benefits. We will discuss how to build an inclusive AI governance framework and AI system that will strengthen human dignity, creativity, and agency rather than erode them. Today, with us on stage, I will introduce our dear panelists one by one. Professor Weixing Shen, the Director, Institute for Studies on Artificial Intelligence and Law, Tsinghua University. Welcome, Professor Shen. And Professor Xufeng Zhou, Dean of School of Public Policy and Management, Tsinghua University. Welcome, Professor Zhou. And Professor Zheng Liang, Vice Dean, Institute of AI International Governance of Tsinghua University, and Professor Shen Zhou, Associate Researcher, Department of Communication of Science and Technology, University of Science and Technology in China. So I'll begin with our first round of the question. I'll start with Professor Shen. Across major jurisdictions, now we see 3 very distinct philosophies of AI governance taking place. In US, with innovation first and market-driven approach, the EU with a rights-based precautionary model shaped by the Brussels effect, and China with a safety-first and application-oriented pathway emphasizing responsible deployment of AI system. We also touched upon this yesterday. So from your perspective, what kind of deeper regulatory philosophy drive these kind of differences? And how could developing countries, especially those with low regulatory readiness, learn from these models without simply copying any one of this just one framework?
Okay, well, so you mentioned the regulatory philosophy. Actually, the day before yesterday, during the lecture from Professor Simon Chestman, he has summarized the 3 patents, like you have mentioned. Again, U.S. perhaps is market-oriented and they promote the innovation, but Europe perhaps is like an individual right protection standpoint. So they have GDPR or European AI Act, more strictly regulated. But for China, the day before yesterday, I have not enough time to have more reflection to Simon's comments. I would like to clarify for China is not only to the purpose of so-called national security, but also we have a lot of statute to protect the individual's right. Besides, I mentioned the personal information protection law, we have also a very fundamental code. Actually, it's my preliminary field, the civil code. In a civil code, there are over 1,000 articles, but there are a very separate or independent chapter on the right to personality, include the privacy and personal information. So there are a lot of articles to regulate, to protect the individual's right. But I don't think we are after the European model. Even, to be frankly, when we draft the personal information protection law, we really after the European model. We after the GDPR. We learn a lot from the GDPR. But you all know the European very enjoyed the so-called Brussels effect. And they are so proud of the drafting of the GDPR. And Chinese scholars are so interested on the GDPR. But after a while, we have found that the standard GDPR is so strict. So it's preventing the development of artificial intelligence. So the third pathway for China is to balance between the development and securities. We want to find the third pathway. So we would like to encourage, not only protect the individual's right and national security, but we also want to encourage the AI industry and technology to have innovation. For instance, in China, we want to introduce like a sandbox to give, for instance, like the autonomous vehicle. We have already in Zhang, there is a special zone. I have also experience. We drive the car, actually no driver. So we sit in the car and the car go outside the factory. And together with all of autos, with others. So we really want to, to promote the innovation. So we want to find some legal system to balance the security and development, to balance the innovation and the personal, the individual's rights protection. Is the third pathway compared with US and the European countries. So I would like to clarify this. Again, the standpoint of Chinese AI development is at the beginning.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying on the legislative model of China's AI development. I guess you call it the third pathway, which is to strike a balance between like innovation and human-based safety and other concerns and risks. We'll come back to that in the second round of the question with some specifics. Now I move on to Professor Zhou. The report shows that AI has real potential to support economic growth, strengthen public policy, and also open up new forms of work. But it also highlights a series of risks, from misclassifying rural female borrowers to excluding low literacy groups from essential services. Based on your research work, is AI today helping countries move toward more inclusive growth? And what simple, immediate policy steps can help ensure that AI brings more opportunities than harm in people's everyday lives, especially when it comes to social welfare and employment?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And I'm very glad to be here at the University of Melbourne. First, we can say that the human beings or our civilization's development has been driven by innovation, technological innovation. Therefore, AI itself is an innovation. This is the first nature. Another nature is what kind of technology. AI is an information, first, it is an information technology. Information technology, it will be used to knowledge and information diffusion and acceptance. Therefore, people, not only for the high-level elite, but also for average people. Average people can get information with cheaper and more frequently. Therefore, they have more social powers empowered by information technologies. AI itself is an information technology itself. Therefore, as we can see, with the social media, with the internet, and also AI, the average people can be empowered, and their social influence to the decision-making process will be improved. This is the one thing. Therefore, they can influence the policies that can be efficient and also other areas. That could be one area. That could be narrow the power gap between the elite, social elite, and also the average people. This is the first function. However, it is also the tools. AI is also a tool that make the competition more seriously. For example, as we can see that a lot of people, a lot of workers, they are worried about they lost their jobs. So in America, there are a lot of new strikes. Their opinions, they would like to promote the forbidden of the use of the AI tools, not only for the automobile industry, but also for Hollywood celebrities and writers. They are against the investors to use AI tools. Why they that? Because they are worrying about they lost their job. But another side, we can see that the 7 tech companies, the stock market values are uprising higher and much higher than before. This is the result, social consequence about AI technology, that widening the gap between the investors, between the capitalists, and between the worker, labor classes. Therefore, because of the AI, the social gap, social inequality will be widened because of the innovation. So as we are policymakers, we should promote some kind of social welfare policies to help the disadvantaged people. If they lost their job, we must help them and to let them to have new skills to facilitate their finding new jobs, and also they can survive in the new areas. So thank you.
So I can tell you're a tech optimist. So basically you're saying that AI development can make a technology more affordable and accessible for certain communities and people. And country do have a choice to narrow the inequality in one way or another. It's not, because like yesterday we heard a lot of experts talking about risks, especially like human risk and inequalities. And today we hear, professors might have like a different perspective. And then I have a related question to Professor Liang from the public service perspective. So from your experience, what do you see some of the institutional features where policy pathways tend to lead countries go to like different directions? Some of them might find a way to expand inclusion and narrow inequality, but some might exacerbate inequalities among different populations and communities. So can you share your views on that and from the policy and public service perspective?
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the question, and also thank you for the introduction of the latest work jointly performed by DP and the collaborators, including our institute. So in fact, both Professor Zhou, Shen, and I myself was involved into this work. So we accomplished a chapter to compare the different countries' experiences in how to adopt AI to benefit the people. So not the small group, but for all the peoples, for all the individuals. So we can find, the first priority, if you want to benefit the people to use this technology, yes, the accountability, and I think it's so beneficial for the normal people. I guess the policy, I think it's thinking, all the, I think it's the portfolios are very important to adopt this technology. So in exact scenarios where I think the technology could be used to serve the public, I think at welfare. So for example, in some areas like transportation, so you know that as we observed at the very beginning, in China, when we adopt some of this kind of technology, in the I think the publication transportation system, we use this like scenarios to give the opportunity, yes, for the I think companies to improve the technology. So first. From the very, maybe I think at beginning, it's not mature like today, yeah. I think this is a right way to do this because at the very beginning, the technology is not mature enough and they need a space to be improved. So it's, I think it's easy to adopt which into this kind of the scenarios related to public welfares, and to give the space for the mature for the technology to come into mature, and at the same time, the public sectors, including the regulators, to safeguard the use of these technologies. And there is some guarantees of the, I think, the personal. I think either. I think they are privilege. Or I think it's the benefit. Which could be narrowed. By the maturity of this technology, step by step. So we adopt many of the I think the smart. video, I think this kind of recording systems to optimize the whole transportation systems so in some cities, so like in Hangzhou, so at the very beginning. So I think that's a good example, to do this. So this is a case I think it come into my mind at the very beginning. And we can also observe some other, so I think cases like in rural areas. So we can also use this kind of technology. So in some I think areas, so like logistic systems to connect so some of the fresh product to be delivered directly from the farm, I think to the families, so in the urban areas, which we can observe many of these kind of stories. So in western areas, like in Sichuan, so like in, I think in Yunnan. So formerly, so I think if you don't have this kind of technology, so like intelligent logistic systems, the drones, so this kind of technologies, so the farmers, they couldn't, I think, earn, so I think benefit from wage. So because the waste of this kind of product in the logistic systems is very high. But when we have this kind of technology and they could used by such kind of e-commerce platforms like Jingdong, so like Ali, so all of them. So maybe just so in one day, so they can transport this fresh fruit from the farm to the urban areas. And all this kind of, I think it's delivery systems not only operated by the companies themselves, but also connected to the, I think it's the public, I think it's, I think it's service, communities, so like some alliance among the small farmers. So then they can share both the benefit. And I think during this process, so this kind of technologies being improved also. So as we can observe, so which kind of models you adopt at the very beginning, so will have influence on the further development of the technology itself. At the same time, to benefit more peoples, or just I think it's the individuals or companies. So I think that's what we can learn from this kind of experience.
Right, you're saying basically as technology evolve, the policy related to regulate these technologies iterate together with this technology. At the beginning, it might be only benefiting a minority group of people, for example, high-income population or people living in urban area. But as the technology develops, there are like other ways of making it more accessible to vulnerable groups and, for example, like rural areas.
Yes.
You're giving self-driving and drone and logistic AI-enabled logistic as an example.
Good example to combine both the benefit of the government and the market, and to serve, I think, the people really need it.
Okay, thank you for that point. I'll move on to Professor Zhou. Over half of the region of the Asia Pacific is still offline, as some of the panelists pointed out yesterday as well. And many AI systems are trained on very narrow data sets, creating structural invisibility for example, we talk about rural communities, for women, and for linguistic minorities, as Professor Bird touched upon it yesterday. How can government design trustworthy and inclusive data governance so these people are not going to be excluded from very critical AI-driven solutions?
That's a very good question. And please allow me to answer your question in a very short moment. I would like to first express my heartfelt gratitude to AIIG at Tsinghua University and University of Melbourne and your institute for having me. And it's really a great honor for me to sit with my professors at Tsinghua University. Because 5 years ago that I studied at Tsinghua University School of Public Policy and Management, and they are all my mentors, not only in academic sphere, but also in spirit shaping. So it's very, very nice to have this opportunity to sit with my professors. And second, I would like to say, good day, mate. As I heard, this is very Australian, and this is also my first time here in Australia, so I would like to lead by that. Okay, go back to your question. That's a very good question, and indeed it's a very, very important. And I have to first point out that we have to first recognize that data is not merely raw resources. It's the reflection or downright reflection of the power structure. So we have to recognize that if we treat data indifferentiately, that we inevitably replicate the social economic structure of the physical world. So this is the fundamental thing I would like to say. Then, just by that, and the private sector do not have the incentive to include what you call the marginalized people, those kind of the data in their training data, because the marginalized usually do not have enough purchasing power. That's why that the government should play their active role instead of the passive regulation, right? They have to display their active stewardship in those kind of a data inclusion. I envision kind of a representative data mechanism. For example, in China, the People's Congress or the People's Consultative Conference, we usually have our representatives to represent people's right? So in this data kind of thing, we could also have representative data as public digital goods. Isn't that right? So just by doing that, we can have those kind of a necessary diversity in the data we need. And I also, just days ago, that the Gemini 3 just released, say that the Gemini 3 is so far the most powerful model in the world, and the GPT 5.1. And they usually, before those models went to the public, they usually go through some kind of tests. Those tests, for example, IQ tests, model IQ tests, mathematical tests, those examinations. Why don't we have some kind of a marginalized people or diversity kind of a test? Right? Before those kind of models went to the public, they have to go through kind of a golden standard. If they pass those kind of a test, they could be called some inclusive a model, or we can give them some incentive or some subsidy to incentivize them. This is very important. And also one of the primary reasons why mislabeling is a problem is because the data extracted from the community is usually very distant from the data that labeled them. And I mean the data subject and data annotator is very distant. It's very distant. And for example, the data extracted from Hawaii or some kind of a local Melbourne community, and their data is usually labeled by someone in Africa, right? And some cultural nuance is just lost. Someone, the annotator do not have the nuance, do not have the cultural nuance they understand. So I think we need have the first principle of labeling. What is the first principle of labeling? And those kind of diversity kind of a thing, and we use these kind of first principles to train our annotators before they go to work. They put that labeling into the field. And we can also do a cross validation among different annotators to ensure that the labels meet our first golden standard. That is also a very important kind of thing. And the last two things I would like to say, that we need to invest in local labeling industry to narrow the distance between the data extracted and the data labeled. And by doing that, we not only build the labeling industry, but also have the cultural label back to the data, and government play a very important role, because government is usually a very big buyer of those kind of model application. So they can have the power, they can set some standard. Say, for example, you have to pass some kind of a test, you have to expose your kind of a data sheets of your data. What is included in your data and what is missing. And by doing that, I think we could say that government play an active role in those kind of things to include marginalized data in the model that's fit for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Professor Shen to respond to these points. I'm just curious if that's related to legislation. Professor Zhou pointed out data labeling, and also like to bring in diversity inclusion as one of some of the key indicators for pre-assessment for these large language models. So how do you see this from a legislative perspective?
So regarding to legislation on artificial intelligence is a very difficult question. I think, I don't know, Tesma has the same feeling. So because you have always heard a word, it's calling a ridge dilemma. So calling a dilemma, it means when at the first stage of the AI development, you want to give more space for industry innovation, to promote the development, and you want to less control. But when the AI developed to be just like Hinton mentioned in Shanghai, currently it's a young tiger, but it will grow up. When they grow up, so it's a great threat to the humankind. So it will out of control. So when it will be the right time to make a legislation. And it's also a very crucial issues in China. We discussed many times. But to my understanding, I think just like yesterday, Simon has mentioned one word I think is very inspiring. He told us like regulation is kind of seat belt. We couldn't regarding the legislation to be a road block. It's kind of a seat belt. Without seat belt, you cannot drive the car very safely. But we couldn't have a legislation very strict, like a European standpoint, to stop it, the development for AI. So how to balance, just go back to the first previous topic, how to balance between the innovation and the security is really a good question. So I would like to talk a little bit about, like you have mentioned from your report, I have seen like the minimal viable accountability.
Accountability, yes.
It's kind of a very good word. And I like the word accountability very much. Because when I really enjoyed, I always talk with my students about my understanding of this principle. Because I have very special experience when I was in Germany 26 years ago in 1999. At that time, also currently, when we take a train or subway, there's a ticket checker. You must show him your ticket. But when I go to Germany, nobody checked my ticket. I was so nervous on the train. But there is a very horrible terrible rule. If you don't buy a ticket, you was checked by the controller, you will be fined 360 mark, or that time still mark. So I use this example to tell the students, so the accountability is a very good principle. You don't need to so many regulators, persons, like over-regulation or mini regulation, but we only have a very, very strict liability. So we will, for me, I always buy a ticket. I don't want to be fined. I don't want to have a stamp on my passport. But I have taken Trump in Melbourne. I have since heard there's a free zone. And I pretend I don't know it's over the free zone. But yesterday I have noticed there is a notice is outside the free zone. So I think this kind of rule will be help to regulate the industry self-disciplinary. We couldn't only imagine we can regulate industry to eliminate the risk. The risk can only be eliminated by themselves. So self-discipline, not only for industry, but also for association is very crucial. And we should, so we should have a right idea. So this time, we cannot eliminate the risk. We must bear or endurance bear the risk to develop AI. The only way is to minimize the risk. So we should have a regulation or legislation to protect the fundamental human right. For instance, like in China, we have the algorithm regulation to prevent the algorithm discrimination. We have also the deep senses to prevent the deep fake. I don't know if you heard such kind of deep fake is very horrible, not only for the threat to property, such as the Hong Kong company has transferred a lot of money because he has seen video. In China, we have all this thing, no picture, no truth. But now even you have video, but not true. And he was cheated by even some cases in South Korea. The famous star has combined with ironic picture, videos. So deep fake is a great threat to the fundamental human right. We should protect it. And last one, I think we should have a bottom line via regulation. Bottom line or baseline is mean like Simon has mentioned. It's only a seat belt. It's not a block. Use it to protect the fundamental human right. Then others will leave space for innovation. It's my idea about how to balance innovation and security.
It's very interesting, a very good metaphor, and it's very much in line with the concept of minimal viable accountability approach that introduced by this report. Because we understand that it's not very realistic for countries to come up with a very mature regulatory system overnight, especially for countries with relatively lower regulatory readiness. So having the basic legal safeguards in place is very important. So people will have somewhere to go and to some way to have a remedy if their rights were not representative or harmed by the AI system. So yeah, this is very important and interesting question. I will move on to the next question, which is related to environment. The report also notes that AI data could consume up to 8% of the regional electricity by 2030, deepening energy and water stress. Yet, AI has real climate values, such as doubling flood forecast accuracy in Northeast India and somewhere in China. So I want to ask Professor Zhou, from a climate governance perspective, We kind of talked about it a bit yesterday in some of the panels too. How can government steer AI in these two directions? On one hand, we talk about mitigation, where like AI's, we need to minimize AI's growing energy footprint. And on the other hand, we are looking at adaptation. So by using tools like policy tools to channel AI innovation into more resilience for vulnerable communities.
Yeah, thank you. First, I think AI is a tool for make our production more efficient. So as you mentioned that we can trace the carbon footprint and also others, actually it can save energy with AI for our daily life and also productivity. So the first function of AI is can adapt, as you mentioned, that the adaptation of climate risks and also to save the energies and also the reduce the carbon emission. So this is the first function of AI. A lot of cases can be used. For example, they can use AI tools to help animals to calculate the carbon sink and also other lot of things. Maybe I needn't to take more examples. Another maybe very important function of AI, I think. I would like to emphasize that because who emit carbon dioxide? Our people. So in modern society, everybody use energies, use cars, airplanes. They emit a lot of carbon dioxide. However, another thing, if we have a smaller population, the carbon emission will be smaller, right? However, we are always worried about our population structure because we have lower birth rate, we are elderly people, a lot of aging society. So a lot of things, we are almost all governments are encourage our parents to have more babies. Why? Because we are worried about our shortage of laborers. We are shortage of the population structure. However, with AI, we needn't worry because we have a lot of people we're worried about. We have a shortage of young people to help to afford the society. But if we have robots, if we have AI tools, we needn't worry about. Therefore, the government needn't release some kind of encouraging policies to have more babies. So that could be another side of our energy saving and carbon emission. So this is a this
How
is
does that save energy? I mean, like you find a solution for an aging society. I get that.
With smaller population, that could be maybe everybody can have more resources. That's good society for us. I think with robot, we needed a lot of laborers. We needed a lot of populations. And also, we needed to encourage our parents to have more babies. So that's another function for AI. Don't worry about the job replacement, but our society is a shortage of laborers. So this is another thing.
Are you worried about the climate crisis and the global warming as like that's the biggest crisis identified by UN of our century?
If we have no such kind of big populations. We have more resources. We have more land. We have more water, and we have more opportunities for yeah, we don't worry about our competition among peoples. So this is another, this is another function of AI or for climate issue. However, we must remind that AI is a very energy-consuming technology. That could be, we must emphasize that because the statistics show that in China, 5% of energy electricity are consumed for data centers and AI. And especially maybe I think in America, the percentage will be higher because there's no manufacturing industry. So therefore, if we would like to produce more AI technologies, we must consider how to save energies, like therefore green AI and more efficient AI should be produced and innovated. So this is the third one. For the inclusiveness, I think yeah, I already answered this question because with AI, we needn't a large population. Maybe in the whole Earth, maybe 3 billion population is enough. Therefore, more resources, more space can be used for current people. Therefore, the vulnerable communities and also they have more opportunities. For example, the universities. Yeah, currently we have 5 billion people, and then we have fewer opportunities to get college. But maybe if we have half people, half population, we have double
Caused by aging society?
Yeah, not aging society, intelligent society. so we have more opportunity for get the social welfare and university opportunities. That's a good society for us. And then we can say that we have more opportunities. Yeah, thank you.
Right. You picture a future society with less population, less energy consumption, consequently, but AI-powered society where there will be robots doing works for us.
20 years later, there will be a conference designed by robots.
and humans get to listen to their insights.
Okay.
So let's move on to the next topic. I would invite Professor Liang to give some advice on some of the emerging economies and developing economies with like limited fiscal space. What kind of public investment is skill sets, compute access, or public data sets offer the highest return for enabling a broad-based productivity gained from AI, as Professor Zhou envisioned that kind of society in abundance.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a very insightful observation from Professor Zhou. But maybe for the emerging economy, at the very beginning, it's still how to achieve the growth of the productivity and to serve, I think, the people based on the earnings of this kind of technology. Yes, you are totally right. So I think the three things for the government in emerging economies should do. So first, I guess, it's the investment on the infrastructure. So we need the new generation of infrastructure, just as we showed yesterday.
Infrastructure.
Like the telecommunication, infrastructure, we throw money, in past decades. So we know, both ITU, OECD, all of these kind of organizations issue some report, what we can get, I think returns from the investment on infrastructure. So I think that in each round of the industrial revolution, you could observe this kind of phenomenon. So like the canals, like the railways. And now, it's a computing, I think a center. So this kind of infrastructure. it will give you the universal, I think, returns. Because just as Professor Shen mentioned, we don't know which track, which kind of applications could earn, I think, more benefit for the companies. But the investment on infrastructure, will give you, I think, a constant return. Although we don't know, which areas. It's just like what we did in China for the high-speed train. The investment on high-speed train, if you calculate from the public investment, it's maybe not, I think it's a good business for the government. But we have many of this kind of empirical analysis, it benefits, I think very various industries, and also the public, I think service delivers, of this kind of different areas. I think this is the first thing. And the second thing, yes, investment on people, education. Just as Professor Zhou mentioned, we need to do this kind of things. I think Shen gave a very good example. I think not only in China, but also in Vietnam, in some of the developing countries, the laboring, I think industry are also emerging, I think areas which you can give the people, in rural areas, more opportunities. I heard some stories, in the West provinces, in China, like Sichuan, Shanxi, they have maybe tens of thousands of the, I think, the female, who didn't have work, before they can do this. But if you want to improve, I think I think accuracy of the models, you need to educate the people. That's a problem now the healthcare, I think areas faced. If you want to do this kind of labeling of what we call the high quality data set, you should educate the people at the very beginning. Not only I think to have some maybe I think scientific engineering educations, but also the education literacy, these kind of things.
Literacy and capacities, and invest in infrastructure, but at the meantime invest in your people, especially those in otherwise like vulnerable communities, and like women or rural population.
And the last but not least, just as I mentioned at the beginning, the public sectors, not only the government, could open the scenarios. I think to the I think developers of the technology and to improve this technology under this kind of scenarios. That's why in China we encourage what we call the AI Plus initiative. And
initiative.
Put the priorities in the public sector's adoption of this technology. And when the public, I think, sectors adopted this kind of technology, you should, I think, have this kind of guidelines at the very beginning. It's not like the totally commercialized, I think, application. It gives the opportunity to I think, the evolution of both the regulation of technology. I think that's a very good model. For the emerging technology, economies, could do both benefit. I think the public at the same time and develop and adopt the technology.
Right, it's just adopting AI technologies for public sector and public service
accountability,
as well. Improve accountability and a lot of things. So, my last question goes to Professor Zhou. So we talk about this, also this is about regional collaboration. So in your perspective, what kind of inclusive community-led and more like equal distribution AI governance model look like for Global South, for some of the developing countries? And also very importantly, how can they come up with some sort of like a collective bargaining power rather than negotiating with these major technology providers alone to gain that kind of capacity and possibility in the future?
That's a good question. I would like to first echo with what we first talked about. And yes, AI education is very important, the literacy. I have 3 words: communicate, educate, and regulate. It's not very smart.
You mean communication?
Communicate, educate, and regulate. It's a dumb thing that we just regulate. Regulate what? We do not have the foundation. So we have to have the social foundation for regulation, as the Professor Liang talked about. Otherwise, we cannot have the technology, innovation, and the diffusion. And what kind of communication? Risk communication. What is education? AI literacy. What is regulate? AI governance. That is what I say about the echo, which you first talk about. And your question about what's the South countries governance model will look like. And I think that the model, we have to move away from the extraction model where let external corporations extract data from the local. So this kind of a model we have to move away from. Another model we have to forget is the compliance model. Compliance model is that we have to comply with the Western talked about. Their model, their principles, their framework. The one size does not fit for all. So for South countries, they have to have their own models, which emphasize, I think, on three things. One is data sovereignty, another is collective rights, and third is restorative justice. And they have their own say on their own data, and they have to have the extra value added to their data. That is the data sovereignty we talk about. And the collective rights is that the South countries, they do not have much bargaining power or negotiating power by themselves. They have to work together to form a union, to have kind of a collective power to talk with the Western world. And the restorative justice and the harm done in the before, we have to recognize that. Not like we have to forget about the past and we just start from now on. Those kind of thing is not a very good thing. And actually, South countries have many leverages. They don't think they have leverages, but they actually have a lot of leverages they could use to negotiate with the Western countries or those private sectors, especially in AI models development early stages. They have the market, they have the data, they have the diversity that make the model work more efficiently. They have the labor workers, all those kind of things. They could also to leverage to bargain with other countries. I think this is a very important. This is what I want to say about that.
Thank you. You're saying like, so for these global South countries, not only become like their own, not only consumers of these AI models, but to become like producers and to come up, use their data and diversity as a leverage, to come up with context fit kind of like AI models for their own.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're about close the discussion. Should we open the question? I think we're done.
4 minutes, so I think that's time for a couple of questions.
Yes. So the floor is open, and we'd like to take questions from the audience.